That's right. Welcome into the 2023 Idaho High School Soccer State Tournament Preview Extravaganza. Brandon Baney, pleased to be joined by Christian Weaner. He is one of the talented writers at IdahoSports.com. He's the guy every week when you read the weekend preview. Yeah, he's the guy that's putting all those great words together. So, Christian, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here, Brandon. Thanks for having me back again this year. Survived last year, and we're back for another year of a good state preview. It should be a really fun weekend.
Yeah, there's so many compelling storylines to get to in both girls and boys soccer, but we have arrived. It is the weekend where 6 state tournaments will take place, all in the Treasure Valley. They like to rotate. So sometimes the North hosts, sometimes it's Treasure Valley, sometimes Magic Valley. And so it's going to be a really exciting time. Christian, when we talk about the game of soccer, what's your level of fandom?
I'm not gonna lie. Soccer, of all of the sports that I follow, is not towards the top. I would say it's not a sport I played myself personally in high school or anything like that. So I don't have that knowledge, but I have had a lot of friends who are very big soccer fans that have kind of gotten me into it a little bit. So, I watch some soccer here and there and whatnot. I would not consider myself to be a huge aficionado, but I really enjoy writing the weekend preview each week, like you said earlier. And so it's kind of fun catching up on what's going on around the state. I feel like I have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of the teams in the state. And so, yeah, I would definitely say I'm not the leading expert, but I have enough knowledge that we can get through tonight.
Yes, I'm in the same boat as you. I surround myself with people who know the X's and O's of the game, and then I'm kind of like you. I kind of just look at the stats and the data, and oh yeah, this team looks good, and this one doesn't. But yes, you've done such a great job all year long with the weekend preview, spotlighting the biggest soccer matchups on both the boys and girls side. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. We'll start at the very top, the highest classification level, Class 5A, and we'll start on the girls' side, where there is a heavy favorite coming in. But as we take a look at this bracket, we'll throw it up on the screen here. We have Eagle the 4 against Highland the 5, and this tournament's taking place at Rocky Mountain High School. Then you've got the 1 versus 8, Boise and Centennial, familiar faces. Number 2, Timberline plays number 7, Lake City, and then it is 3rd-seeded Owyhee taking on 6th-seeded Mountain View. 6 of the 8 spots in this bracket come from District 3, so there was bound to be some, conference matchups right away here at state. But Christian, when you look at this bracket, what's the first thing that jumps out to you?
I think there's a lot about this bracket that's really interesting to me. I think, first of all, the one crazy thing you have to note is Centennial sneaking in this year. That overall record 5-9-3, but you get on a run at the end of the year. We've seen it so many times before, and they find their way in to the tournament, and should be quite an interesting matchup there with Boise in the first round too, as that was the state finals last year. So that'll be an interesting one that stands out to me. But for me, the one matchup that I think is really going to be in it, the close one, is going to be Eagle and Highland at the top of the bracket, the 4 and 5. I think that's going to be a really tight one. But like I said, Centennial sneaking in there, and then also Lake City snuck in as well this year, which is an interesting one. They kind of had a little down year in the regular season, but again went on a run in the district tournament. So I think that there's kind of a good balance of kind of, like you said, juggernaut teams, and then some underdog Cinderella teams that could maybe make a run as well.
Yeah, the first thing that jumped out to me is Lake City sitting there at number 7, coming in a totally different spot than they were last year. They were the number 1 seed. They were undefeated. They, of course, fell to Centennial in last year's semifinals, 1-0. This year, you mentioned it, Christian, they took 3rd place in the district in the regular season. They were the number 3 seed coming in, got hot at the right time. They beat Lewiston in the championship 3-2 in overtime, thanks to a golden goal. And now here they come in almost the exact opposite as the 7 seed. So I'm really interested to see, coming in a different spot, can they get back to, where they want to be, which is competing for the championship? That's going to be fascinating to me. But let's start at the top. The overwhelming favorite coming in is the Boise Brave, 15-0-1 during the regular season. They went undefeated in conference play, 12-0. They had to win the district championship in penalty kicks, and it came down to 7 different players lining up to take kicks, Christian. It was pretty wild between Boise and Timberline for that district title.
Yeah, that was really an intriguing matchup. I know they're obviously big heated rivals, especially on the soccer pitch, Boise and Timberline. And yeah, really, I mean, Boise for a lot of the year had not really been pushed. I mean, you look at you run down the list, they outscored their opponents 54-5 this season, shut out 11 teams. And so, I mean, they did, and they're stocked with talent. I mean, you look up and down their lineup. They added Marisol Stosic that will, maybe we'll talk about a little later in our players to watch, who's from Thunder Ridge. And so it's like they have so much talent. But I mean, Timberline gave them a good run. They're a good young team as well. And I think really the 1 and 2 are the kind of big heavy favorites here. And I would not be surprised to see them playing again in a few days.
Yeah, so Boise won the penalty kick shootout over Timberline 6-5 in that district championship. Nolan Cromie ended up booting the game winner. She had not taken any penalty kicks at all in the season, and so she's coming in pretty much ice cold, nails it. And of course, yes, when you talk about Boise, you have to start with Sammy Smith, who won't be participating at this state tournament because she has been called to compete on the U.S. national team, which is like very exciting, kind of a bummer for Boise and for Sammy. I know she wanted to be there with her teammates, but she was able to play a little bit in that district championship and did take one of the penalty kicks in the shootout before heading off.
Yeah, I know she was on a little bit of a pitch count there. They had her limited in how many minutes she ended up playing in that championship. I know it was kind of a similar situation last year, too, if you remember with her. She played in the U17 World Cup and ended up missing. She missed actually more of the season last year. She ended up missing the last 5 games in the regular season and then the state tournament this year, just the state tournament. But yeah, it's amazing. Last year they lost their best player, still won state this year. I mean, still a favorite even losing her, but yeah, definitely is a big loss as she's obviously one of the premier players in the entire state.
Yeah, and you mentioned sophomore striker Marisol Stosic, who was at Thunder Ridge last year as her freshman season. She started for Thunder Ridge all year. She actually plays club soccer with a lot of these Boise High girls, and she was like, "Mom and Dad, what do you think about maybe moving to Boise and me playing with these girls year round?" And they were able to pull it off, and Boise says, "We'll take it." Head coach Nicole Arsenault says, "Yeah, we'll take it. You'll fit in just fine." So yes, Boise comes in as the overwhelming favorite. The rich get richer, right, Christian?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and yeah, I don't know what you can really say about that, but I mean, it's just overwhelming amount of riches there on the Boise Brave, and definitely going to be a tough team in this tournament.
All right, so I like to take a look at goal differential when assessing these teams, because some teams play 20 plus matches in a season. Some only get to like 13 or 14 just because of the scheduling and opponents that are close by and stuff. So I feel like goal differential is usually a good starting point, at least to try and compare these teams. And so when you look at goal differential, it's goals scored minus goals allowed. And when you look at that data, there are 2 teams that are actually tied at the top. Boise, of course, you mentioned it. They've outscored opponents 54-5. That's a plus 49 differential. But Highland also comes in at a plus 49 differential. 67 goals scored, 18 allowed. Eagle is almost near the bottom, Christian. Second to last, 32 scored, only 10 allowed, but just a total of 22. So to me, this Highland Eagle matchup at the top, as you talked about, this 5-4 matchup, really, I think comes down to Highland's offense versus Eagle's defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think for Eagle, it really starts at the back line with senior goalie Catherine Soddard, 38 saves on the year, according to Max Preps. And just like you said, they do have a stellar defense. I think that's going to be a really exciting matchup. Like I said off the top, that's one of my ones I'm looking at in the first round. That will be really fun. The Rams and Mustangs, they're familiar with one another. Last year, they played in the consolation finals of the 5A bracket. It ended up went 2-2 through regulation. And the Eagle ended up taking the win 4-3 on penalty kicks. So I think that there's definitely no love lost between those 2 squads right there. And I think that'll be really a great matchup as, I mean, Highland comes in flaming hot. They've won 11 straight games coming into this match.
Yeah, 13-3 during the regular season. They've got Tambry Bell, Riley Jones, Caitlin Statz, who can all fill the back of the net. And you mentioned that Eagle defense with Catherine Southard in goal. And then Aubriana Smith in the defender spot was their highest returning all-conference player from last year. To the bottom of the bracket, let's start with this Timberline Lake City matchup, because Timberline goes, hey, we got the 2 seed. We're feeling pretty good. And then you look and you go, oh, we have to play Lake City. I'm not sure that's a win for us. I'm not sure that's a good draw for us, I need to say.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. I know we'll talk about this throughout the rest of the broadcast here. There's a lot of interesting matchups just with the way Max Preps kind of worked out. I know because they counted in the district tournaments, things kind of ended up getting shifted around a little bit, where some of these teams are in spots you wouldn't really expect. And this is definitely one of those underrated. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what you would think in a 2-7 matchup there, as the Wolves and Timberwolves go head to head. I mean, Lake City they've had so much success. They've had so much experience on that roster that even though they maybe have lost some of the talent, I know they don't have obviously Elliot Cordes anymore, who's now playing at Washington State, but they're still a heck of a good team. And I think that'll be a great first round matchup. And like you said, if you're Timberline, that's not the 7 seed you probably were expecting when you got the 2.
Yeah, definitely not. Emily Medina scored the golden goal in overtime for Lake City in that district championship. One of a small number of seniors that are leading what was a younger Lake City team, but they have seemed to have found their footing at the right time. And then, not only did Lewiston, the regular season champ, not win districts, they didn't win the play-in game to get to state either, thanks to Centennial. So Lewiston, league champ of the regular season, sitting at home watching this one. And then we've got the Timberline Wolves on the other side, and this is a deep, talented team. They get overshadowed a little bit by playing in the same league as Boise, but, man, they've got talent up and down the lineup.
Oh, yeah, and they have some young players, too. I mean, they obviously have some upperclassmen that have been experienced, that have been in these situations before. I mean, you look at Ellie Lewis, 6 goals, 10 assists on the year. Ashlyn Sandro is a really good player. But you also have some young players. Sophomore Mackenzie Hildebrand's a really good player, has 7 assists on the year. And they have a freshman in goalkeeper, Alexis Salisbury, that has 52 saves. And so, they have a good mixture, I think, of different ages on that team. And I think that they're one of those squads that I think will be back for sure in future years.
Yeah, a couple of University of Montana commits in the midfield, Sandow and Emma Widmore. You mentioned how talented they are. They're 13-3-2 this year. Their only losses have come to Boise and Bishop Kelly, and we'll talk about Bishop Kelly in a little bit, including that loss on PKs. And we talked about Lake City last year, came in as the 1 seed and was undefeated, and now it's Timberline kind of reversing, because Timberline last year was the 7 seed, and now they're the number 2. They're one of the favorites coming in.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting role for Lake City to play as kind of the dark horse in this bracket. I think, honestly, if there was going to be a big upset, that would probably be the one right there, the 2-7. I don't know. I really think Timberline's got a good squad, and I think that'll be a tough one for Lake City to get in the first round. But I would certainly not be shocked at all if Lake City came out of this weekend with a couple of wins, even if it's on the back half of the bracket there.
This matchup at the bottom is the toughest for me to peg here, Christian. Owyhee and Mountain View are the 3 and the 6. This is a true coin flip to me. Owyhee had the better regular season, but Mountain View got them at districts 2-0 to force Owyhee into a state play-in match against Madison. And so Mountain View grabbed one of the auto bids. Owyhee had to sweat it out on play-in Saturday. Do the Storm get revenge here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a really intriguing matchup. Again, looking at the goal differential you mentioned earlier, it definitely leans in favor of Mountain View, even though they're the 6 and Owyhee's the 3. I think it's another example of the Max Preps being interesting with this, because obviously, like you said, they're Owyhee, who had to go to a play-in game, ends up getting a top 3 seed, which you don't necessarily see a lot from those play-in games. So, but I mean, the Storm are a good team. They've had a great season. They're one of their players to watch is definitely senior Victoria Pislari, 13 goals on the year, and they have a really good team. Naomi Kessler's a University of Idaho commit, good forward as well for the Storm, and so definitely I think that, like you said, that's one that's like kind of a coin flip to me between them and Mountain View, because I think Mountain View has kind of played well towards the end of the year, whereas Hawaii started out really strong. They started the season 8-0-1, and then have struggled a little bit more down the stretch. But they also have some huge wins. I mean, the Storm, they took down Lewiston 3-0 to start the year. Like we said, who won the regular season of the Inland Empire League up north. They actually beat Bishop Kelly 2-1 early in the season and took down Mountain View in the regular season, like you said. So it's one of those, I don't know. It's like what Storm team is going to show up? Is it going to be that team from the beginning of the year that came out firing, or, is it going to be the team that had to go to the play-in? So that's really the question for me.
Yeah, it's been choppy waters for sure. 5-4 over the last 9 matches for the Storm. All right, we've talked about a lot of different players on all of these squads to watch, but we also wanted to give you some players to watch. We selected one from each team, and again, just a jumping off point. Don't take offense if your name's not on here, but here's the list we came up with. CUNY Hirai from Boise, Lily Simpson of Centennial, Naomi Hilbig from Eagle, great midfielder, Tambry Bell from Highland, explosive scorer, Kennedy Hartzell from Lake City, Zoe Jones from Mountain View, Ashlyn Fuss, the goalkeeper for Owyhee, and Ellie Lewis from Timberline. Which player are you most excited to see compete here at state, Christian?
I think one player I'm really looking forward to seeing is Tambry Bell from Highland. I think we mentioned her a little bit earlier, but 22 goals on the year, also 19 assists, which leads the entire state. So she's definitely not a selfish player up there up front, and has lots of other scorers around her, like we said. And so I think that could be a really interesting one, especially if they were to get past Eagle and had that matchup with Boise in the semifinals. I think she's a player that could give the Braves a little bit of challenges, especially without Sammy Smith out there. So I think she's one to watch.
Yeah, and the one I'm most excited to see is Ashlyn Fuss from Owyhee back there in goal, because she's going to be, especially on that bottom half of the bracket, you're looking at possibly Timberline and then Boise if you want to complete the crowd. You're going to have some high-octane offenses that you're going to have to try and neutralize there. So, all right, let's go back to the bracket, and it is prediction time here, Christian. So here's that 5A girls bracket. I want you to give me, first of all, your first round upset special. If there is one. If there isn't one, then just say there isn't one. But
I would say for me, the first round upset special, I mean, again, depending on what you're calling an upset, I would go with Mountain View over Owyhee. I just think those, like you said, even though they're 3-6, I think they're just very evenly matched teams. And so I think that, like, as far as seed line, I think that is one that I would personally pick. But I mean, if there was going to be a really big upset, like I said earlier, I think it would be Lake City over Timberline. I just think the Wolves are too good. I think that they're going to sneak through that one and get the win over Lake City.
Yeah, my first round upset special, this is going to be kind of a cop out. I'll take the 5 over the 4, Highland over Eagle. I do like Highland and their scoring potential. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Highland really push Boise and challenge them in a semifinal. Give me your championship prediction.
Championship prediction. I'm going to be boring, but I really think it will go chalk. I think it's going to be Boise Timberline again, a rematch of what we had in the district championship. And honestly, I don't know. It could go either way. I mean, I definitely lean Boise just because they just have the overwhelming talent, but I'm not going to count out Timberline. I think that could be my underdog pick. If you can be an underdog as a number 2 seed, but that would be the pick I would probably make there.
Yeah, Boise makes everybody feel like an underdog. That's for sure. I will take Boise, and you're picking Boise to win it. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I will go Timberline just to. I'll put that out there. All right. I'm gonna say Timberline. I have my paper bracket here that I'm writing as I speak, so I will hold myself to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take notes as we do this here and keep track, and we'll come back and see who got more right. This will be really fun. I'm gonna take Boise versus Owyhee. I think Timberline could get knocked out by Lake City in that opener. That would open the path for Owyhee, of course, if they can get past Mountain View. I don't know, something about Owyhee in state tournaments. They just seem to find ways to get to the finals, no matter what sport it is. So I will take Boise over Owyhee. That's going to be my prediction. So,
all right, good picks. I respect that.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. All right, let's talk about 5A boys state soccer. But before we do, we're going to give a special shout out to the Double Dippers this year. These are schools that qualified both their girls and their boys soccer programs to the state tournament. Check out this list for 5A, Christian. 5 of the 8 teams got both teams to state. Boise, Centennial, Eagle, and Timberline, all from District 3. And then Lake City from the north. That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, that is some great teams there. And I mean, it's really cool to see a lot of these squads that were able to make it on both boys and girls. And I think in some ways I appreciate it as I'm making my notes beforehand. I was just able to do some copying and pasting from things from last year and bring in some of these teams. And so that's kind of nice. But I think that a lot of these, and the thing is, a lot of these teams are not only teams that both made it, but both teams that are really going to compete for the title when you look at both sides, like Boise on both sides, Timberline on both sides, Lake City. I mean, these are all really, really good squads.
Yeah, so let's dive into that boys bracket. We'll start at the top. The 4 and the 5 is Rocky Mountain and Lake City. Thunder Ridge is your number 1 overall seed. They will play Eagle, the number 8. And then at the bottom half of the bracket, you've got number 2 Boise against number 7 Centennial. And number 3, Timberline against number 6, Bora. First gut reaction when you look at this bracket, Christian.
Gut reaction when I was looking, because I've been following the Max Prep rankings recently, and gut reaction when I saw it, I was like, whoa, Thunder Ridge, number 1 seed. That really popped to me. I was not expecting them to come in at number 1. I mean, I knew they were like probably top 4, but I was kind of shocked they got that number 1 seed. And honestly, it's going to be an interesting draw for them. In that one, I think for me that whereas they're kind of higher than I thought they would be, in the opposite direction, Lake City is sitting there at number 5 again. We talked about them on the girls' side. Same thing on the boys' side. That is a highly underrated team at a lower seed there that I'm really keeping my eye on.
I think Lake City got totally disrespected on the Max Prep. as much as a computer can disrespect you. I mean, Lake City comes in at 15-0. They're undefeated. And
what more can they do?
They get penalized because they have to play all of the 4A schools up in North Idaho, Sandpoint, Moscow, Lakeland. But we're going to talk about Sandpoint here in a little bit. They're legit, and Moscow's good. I think Lake City is a 5. In fact, I'll just say it. I like Lake City to get to the championship from that top half of the bracket. Personally, Rocky Mountain is an interesting first-round matchup, though. The Grizzlies were no slouch either, right? They went 13-2-1 in the regular season. So I think the first-round matchup might be more difficult than the semifinal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm honestly with you there. I think it's really interesting. Obviously, we have 6 SIC teams out of these 8 squads. And so the whole bottom half of the bracket is kind of just different rematches of the SIC there, whereas the top, I think, is the more interesting, where there's some, I don't know, to me, that really intrigues me of, like you said, Thunder Ridge sitting at number 1, like how can they hold up as the number 1 seed and get through that up top? Or will a team I think, like you said, no matter who it is, Lake City or Rocky Mountain coming out of there, I think is going to really push Thunder Ridge if they can get past Eagle. And that's if they can get past Eagle, because Eagle's really good too. So, I think that intrigues me a lot looking at that, especially that top half of the bracket.
Yeah, Thunder Ridge had a funky record. They were 13-1-3. They had 3 draws in conference play. They tied Highland twice, and then they tied Madison once. Now, they finally, won those games when they got to districts, and so, we can't discredit that entirely. But again, when you look at the goal differential for these 5A programs in 5A, Lake City comes in with the best, 76-3. They've outscored opponents this year. That's plus 73. But Thunder Ridge is number 2, 77 goals scored, 11 allowed for a differential of 66. So if it is Lake City and Thunder Ridge from that top half of the bracket, I mean, that could be a heavyweight showdown for sure. Go ahead, Christian.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's again interesting. There's a lot of rematches that you see of teams from previous years. If they were to get through Lake City, Thunder Ridge, that was the 3rd place game last year. And last year the Titans took advantage. They won 3-0 over Lake City. But I really just think this is a deeper and a lot better Lake City team. It's funny. I'm pretty sure Lake City was a 5 seed last year as well. But I think this is a much better Lake City team than was in this tournament last year.
Yeah, that is a very dangerous number 5 seed for sure. Let's go to the bottom half. I guarantee you, a team from the from District 3 from the SIC will make it to the championship. The question is, which one? You've got Boise and Centennial in the first round, just like on the girls' side. I think that's actually trickier than it might appear on the surface. And then you got Timberline and Bora. I actually like Timberline's matchup a little bit better than Boise's.
Yeah, I actually agree with you there. I think Centennial is, again, one of those teams that is just playing well at the right time here. They finished the season on a 9-2 run, and they got the big 3-0 win over Highland in the play-in game. So I feel like that they're definitely one of those squads that is, I mean, and we've seen it. It's for some reason it's always Centennial coming in here with a lower seed and getting some upsets. But I really think that the Patriots could be a dark horse in the bottom of the bracket.
Yeah, Kevin Mayhew in his second season coaching Centennial's program has done a fantastic job, 12-6-1 in the regular season. And then for me, I really like this Timberline team. This is a group that's been together a lot. They've played a lot of minutes together over the years. Quentin Boggs and Kyle Atkinson and Zach Taylor and just so many dynamic athletes here. Bora, to me, Bora got – I think they're peaking at the right time, 10-4-4 in the regular season, but I just don't know if they can keep up with Timberline.
Yeah, I was happy for Bora that they avoided the play-in game this year. I'm pretty sure last year they had to go through the play-in to make it into the state tournament. So that was good for them that they made it through like that. They got a big win over Eagle in the district tournament, but I just think that's a tough draw. Like you said, Timberline again is I honestly think they could be the number 1 overall seed. I think that they lost a couple matches this year that we didn't see them lose last year. I think that kind of hurt their max prep rankings a little bit. But really, I think that they could be the overall favorite down there, the Wolves, and on the boys' side.
Yeah, Timberline, Boise, and Rocky Mountain were all kind of right near the top of the standings this year. They all took turns kind of beating up on each other. So it'll be very interesting to see how this bracket ultimately pans out. Let's take a look at our 5A players to watch. And again, not an exhaustive list by any stretch, but Baraka Dai from Boise, Christian Griffith from Bora, Carter Griffith, of course, graduated from last year's team. Christian has kind of taken the mantle now. David Miolo from Centennial, Matthew Gabrielle from Eagle, Connor Jump from Lake City, Kevin Jump, the head coach for the Timberwolves, Rylan McPherson from Rocky Mountain, Marco Acosta from Thunder Ridge, and Bryce Elder, the goalkeeper for Timberline. I don't think gets enough credit sometimes. So which athlete are you most excited to watch?
Yeah, I think there's 2 that really stand out to me. You mentioned Christian Griffith. He's only a sophomore, but has been really impressive. I know he was started last year as a freshman as well for the Lions in goal. 86 saves on the year. I don't know. Sometimes who knows with some of these stats on max preps, but that's a really impressive stat right there. I think the other player to me that really stands out is Rylan McPherson from Rocky Mountain with 18 goals and 6 assists on the year. I think that he's a really dynamic goal scorer for them. And I think that if the Grizzlies are going to be able to get past Lake City, then they're going to need a big game from him in the first round.
Yeah, the guy I'm most excited to see is Connor Jump. Led 5A in assists, or was top 5 at least, 17 assists on the year. Great facilitator of that Timberwolves offense, setting up guys like Jacob Molina, who, of course, has scored the most goals this year, 19 of them for Lake City. And then I'm intrigued as well by Marco Acosta for Thunder Ridge. He was the second-team All-State selection last year. And so, again, that Thunder Ridge Lake City semifinal showdown could be a sight to behold. Baraka Dai also 20 goals, 14 assists is pretty good numbers from a defender. So a lot of good players to keep an eye on here, Christian. But again, I'm gonna make you commit to some picks here. We're gonna put that bracket back up on the screen. All right, what is your first round upset special?
All right, first round upset special, I think, is going to be Centennial over Boise. I think that they have the team to do it. Like I said, they've been playing really well. They looked really great in the play-in game. You look at senior forward Austin Carmack, 21 goals, 9 assists. Sophomore David Miolo, 21 goals, 9 assists. Both of them are just a two-headed monster up front for the Patriots, and I think that they're going to get it done, sneak through there, and be that upset team in the first round.
I love it. I also like Centennial over Boise, but I'll go with it's not going to be 5-4 every time, but I'll go with Lake City over Rocky Mountain. And like I said, I like Lake City to get to the championship. But what is your championship matchup here, Christian? And who do you like to win?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Lake City is going to get through that first round. I think the match of the tournament is going to be that semifinal with Thunder Ridge, Lake City. I think Thunder Ridge can get it done against Eagle, and I think that'll be probably one of the best games. And really, I think whoever wins that could win. I think it'll come down to Lake City Timberline, and I'm going to give it to the Timberwolves this time. I think that Lake City is going to get it done as the number 5 seed, disrespected with that max prep rankings just because of the teams they play. But I mean, you can't really question 76-3 on the year. I mean, they've looked so dominant this whole season, 12 shutouts on the year in their 15 games. And I think that they have what it takes.
Yeah. So you like Lake City over, who did you have from that bottom half?
I had Timberline. I think Timberline's going to get through past Centennial. Yep.
Okay. I've got the exact same matchup, but I'm tilting the other way. I like Timberline over Lake City, only because I say this because Timberline is battle tested. They've done this before, right? They do come in as the 2-time defending champions. And yes, they did lose a lot to graduation last year. Only 5 starters back from last year's team, but you can learn a lot by observing. And I just think through the course of the season too, the SIC is maybe a little bit more of a battleground than at times the Inland Empire League is. And so I'll go Timberline over Lake City in the 5A championship there.